I just have to hang my.
And we're live.
What's up? What's up? What's up, YouTube? How are you happy people doing? It is fantastic to be back in the studio, back here for a regular scheduled show. It is Sunday night. It is 9 o'clock, and there is no better place to be but right here with me and with Soder and with our distinguished, fantastic
Extinguished.
favorite, fantastic Boomer. He is healthy and wise and doing great, so that is very exciting. How are you doing, Mr. Tim?
In the last 3 weeks, I've lost 17 pounds.
Holy smokes, what are you doing, man? Is it stress?
No, it's on purpose. Diet and exercise.
That's a lot.
Yeah, man.
Well, the first 7 kind of fell off after I kind of crapped out all the toxins and stuff. So that was the easy one. The last 10 have been a little bit tougher.
Toxins.
Yeah. Those darn toxins, boy, I tell you, they get you every time.
You got 30 more to go.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, that's
more toxins to go.
30 more. After 30 pounds, I'm going to have a full head of hair. I'm going to look like I'm 30 years old. So I'm going with this headset because I knew this was going to work right. As you can see, I've reconfigured my whole setup at home.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure my other mic and stuff works, but I just got off of the competitor Zoom. I just got off of the Zoom conference call, and this was all working, so I wasn't going to test fate. I just had to find where to turn on the earpiece. It was a little bit tricky on this because it wasn't where. I actually had to click on. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I got it to work. That's all that's important.
That's good to know. So just got off the conference call. So any new tyrannical rulings coming down from the Most High?
Well, Governor Walz had his state of the state, but I didn't listen to that, so I don't know what tyrannical. There was. I had a restaurateur that told me the rumor was that he was going to shut down pickup. I haven't heard that at all, so I don't, and that doesn't make any sense. So I don't think that's going to happen. But this governor is just determined that he's going to shut everything down and keep everyone safe.
And that's such a tough one. That's such a tough one because it sounds great. We're keeping you safe. It's all about your safety. We care about your safety. And I go back and forth. With it because, who doesn't want to be safe, right? But boy, oh boy, when you start to hear some of the things that are going down, when you have people that are not working, okay, we've been told for weeks how American people are struggling to make ends meet. They're struggling to keep their head afloat and to pay their bills, and many people aren't going to make it, and all of that. And then with the same voice, you're going to tax people or charge people $1,000 for violating their social distancing orders. I was reading a story earlier where the police went into someone's backyard. Okay. They were in the backyard, in their own backyard, private property. The police go into their backyard and give them both a $1,000 fine for violating social distancing in their own backyard. Come on, man.
Is here in Minnesota?
Yes, that was here in Minnesota. So it's frustrating when you hear about those types of things. I get it in one sense, but I would expect that you would be able to offer some type of gravity to this situation, being that you are the politician. Now, I'm not here to pick a fight with you, Tim. Not yet. It's too early. Not yet. But I know that you often, can bridge the gap between us goofy libertarians and those more pragmatic individuals like yourself. So what's going on here, man? Make some sense of it, because to me it feels like a lot of our civil liberties are being stepped on. Do you see it that way, or do you feel that this is all necessary?
They are being stepped on. So here's what's going on. I hate to warn you, I may sound more like a libertarian tonight than anything else, but I'm not going to be real as declarative about it. The reality is a lot of civil liberties are being stepped on right now. And the way it's set up in Minnesota with the governors, they call it peacetime emergency orders, or pardon me, peacetime emergency powers, something like that. Peacetime state of emergency, and he has powers under that. How about we'll call it that? He has incredible power in the state of Minnesota under those conditions, and I just learned something new. So I've been telling people he has 30 days. I thought it was 5 plus 25, and someone said 5 plus 30, so it's 30 or 35 days. But then he has to come back to the legislature. Well, I just found out that the legislature has to stop him, or he can renew it for another 30 days. So we actually have to affirmatively go in and say no more emergency powers, which has me a little bit concerned because they need to be over after those 30 days. But during those 30 days, and I'm just explaining, I'm not supporting. You can jump on me if you want, but and that's fine. But the way that it is in Minnesota is there's this presumption that what you could be in a situation so great and so catastrophic that fundamental rights under the Constitution need to be set aside for a period of time for the sake of dealing with the issue at hand. Now, to a degree, I understand it, okay? And also understand that these executive powers he has exercised, Dayton exercises, all governors exercise, but it's usually for 5 days, and it's usually they step in if there's in the Red River Valley and there's massive flooding. And all they really do is they just expedite a lot of things that would otherwise need legislative action. And the legislature would say, yeah, you just do it yourself. What's different about this one is, number one, it's statewide. And number two, we haven't had a governor, to my knowledge, certainly not since I've been around. We have a governor who is exercising those powers so deep as to he's claiming he can tell people they can't go to church on Easter Sunday and they can't do communion. And I have an issue with that. I think that it was bad enough that they closed the restaurants and bars. I didn't agree with that, but you can't tell people that they can't worship. Now, peer pressure can get them. The synod or whatever structure of government they have in the church can stop them. There's all sorts of things that can stop them, but I don't believe the governor of Minnesota can stop someone from worshiping on Easter Sunday and have communion if they want to do it. So anyway, that's the things that I'm seeing that's happening. I don't know where he's going forward. I know that he's convinced that these powers are literally saving lives, and he's responsible for saving those lives. So I don't see the powers being lessened. I only see them being increased.
Wow. So, Soder, were you saying something?
No, I'm just like, it's the worst
He's
kind.
trying-
The worst, the guy who does it for your own benefit, because his conscience approves of it. It's the worst kind of tyrant.
Well, I understand there's a lot of people in Minnesota that probably agree with him. And so here's a fair statement, okay? With your freedom comes risk, right? With your freedom, you risk injury, you risk poverty, you risk whatever. But those of us in this chat here want to take that risk. We just fundamentally have a governor that is, saying otherwise.
So, I mean, I guess I would go so far as to say, I am each of us are in the boat together, right? I mean, the things that I'm talking to friends about in Texas are the same things we're dealing with in the state of Minnesota. And then we realize that, I mean, a lot of these governors are speaking. They're all talking about what's working in their state, what's not working in their state. But it's still frustrating. It's frustrating because while I would sound like a monster. I would sound like an absolute monster sitting here and arguing that, hey, people don't need to be uh, keeping their distance from each other, and they don't need. I'm for all that. I can say that my family and my house, we are distancing ourselves. We are under quarantine. But I can say that, if we need to go to the grocery store, we'll run to the grocery store, and those types of things. But we are keeping our distance. That's not because the government told us to. It's just because it makes sense, right? I mean, we don't want to get sick and we don't want to get anyone else sick. And I think most Americans are that way. But when I start seeing pastors being uh, uh, arrested and charged because they are leaving their home, when I start or having church services, when I start to see people calling and turning in their neighbors on a hotline, I mean, Tim, come on, man, calling and turning in their neighbors on a hotline. I mean, come on. I made an argument as I sometimes do. You probably saw it. I made an argument. I said that that the same people um, that are snitching on people for not social distancing would have snitched on Anne Frank and Harriet Tubman. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe the amount of quote unquote Republicans that attack me over that, right? They said, well, those people were heroes, and the people that are out there, walking around sick and getting other people sick and violating social distancing orders, they're terrorists. Are you kidding me?
Well, here's the deal. Here's the fundamental. So follow me here. In Minnesota and in the U.S., we have property rights, correct?
Correct.
It's like we like to think that we do, but that's one of the that's, in my opinion, that and the right to bear arms are the cornerstone to our freedoms. We have a right to own a piece of land and be sovereign on it, if you will, and we have a right to protect ourselves on it. Okay, but here in Minnesota, you see a lot of this, and in some other states. But they're saying, well, you own your land, but we share the air and we share the water. And so you see all these regulations on air and water. So they're not controlling your land, but you're controlling what you do on it because we share the air and water. Well, this is the same thing. Well, you have a right to do what you want, go about what you want, but you're getting other people sick. You don't have a right to do that. Well, no sane person is going to say, well, yeah, I have a right to get someone else sick, because we're reasonable, caring human beings. But the reality is that's effectively what it is that we're saying is, and that's why I brought up with the churches. You are telling someone a fundamental right that we kind of is the base of the base of the base in our Constitution, freedom of religion and freedom to practice it. With people going, well, that's different. We don't want to get people sick. They shouldn't be having communion. Well, is it a freedom or is it not? Is it to be protected or is it not? And what I've had to say in the past couple of weeks, which I do want to tell the other side to this, because I'm not as radical with this stuff as I'm coming across right now, but I'm making a point now, okay? And the point that I've been making the last couple of weeks. So in the Minnesota legislature, we passed a pig of a bill last week, spending a bunch of money, and most of it went to special interest. And it had a lot to do with the process wasn't followed. And they said, well, this is emergency times, difficult situation. We can't do the process. And I said, it's in those difficult times you have to adhere to the process and the principles in our Constitution more than ever, because that's when they're under threat and that's when they get tested. So we need to do that. We need to have process. We need to abide by the First Amendment. Now, are there considerations we need to take? Absolutely. But the government should not be telling people that they can't worship as they so choose. You can highly recommend they don't do it. You can You can be really angry at them for it. You can put peer pressure on them. But it's stunning that the governor says, I can tell people that they can't take communion because they might get someone else sick. It's not his position. Now, having said that, there's an important thing of what's going on in the bigger picture, and it has a lot to do with why we're doing the things that we're doing right now. The reality is number one, we're seeing a pandemic like we've never seen. When I say we've never seen, I had a person walk up to me on the street and they said, my pastor asked me the last time that the whole world was affected by one singular event. I said, what's that? He says, the flood with Noah. And you know what? He's right. Maybe not as dramatic, maybe close to as dramatic, but not as dramatic. But world wars have still been regional. Famine has been regional, whatever. This is a worldwide thing. And so we're just facing things that we've never had to face before. Here's a problem in the US. We aren't testing hardly anybody. I mean, it's a fraction of the people that we're actually testing for this thing. So because we're not testing, we have to do a lot of guesswork. Well, no one wants to guess, so they do what's called modeling. The model that they're going by in Minnesota, and if not every other state, almost every other state, is based on some factors that might be true, they might not be true, but there's a lot of assumptions in it. And those assumptions are proving to be relatively true in New York, but they aren't being so true here in Minnesota. Now, why is Wisconsin? Wisconsin has like double the number of people that have been tested sick that in Minnesota. And you would argue that what's the difference between Minnesota and Wisconsin? No major differences. We don't know. That's the important part. We don't know. So why are we doing stay at home? Because it's better than not doing stay at home. Why are they telling people to wear masks? Because it's better than not wearing masks. By the way, wearing masks don't do a whole lot of good for you during this. They don't hurt, and they might help, but by and large, they are not confirmed to helping. We are doing things that how come I lost my picture? I have to figure that out. We are doing things, there we go. Gotta look at myself every once in a while, see my smiling face. We are doing things on broad assumptions and taking the best shot we can. I had a doctor on the radio with me yesterday that referred to what we're doing as whack-a-mole. And that's pretty accurate. We're kind of doing whack-a-mole with a lot of this stuff.
And there's the frustrating part, right? The frustrating part to me is that we have different states handling this very differently. But I feel that you could have never told me, and I want to be careful because of your position, but you would have never told me 10 years ago that we were going to come to a place in America where these types of encroachments on civil liberties would be tolerated, right? And not only tolerated, but also participated in by our fellow Americans. I never thought I would see the day where these types of things would be tolerated, at least to the level that they are. The fact that there would be fines put out for people leaving their homes, the fact that unauthorized leaving their homes, the fact that we would have a hotline set up for neighbors to snitch on their neighbors for leaving their home too often or unauthorized trips. The fact that we would have the federal government authorizing the raid of private citizens' homes to take away from them materials that they deem needed, right? I understand, and we've had people like Soder yelling and screaming about this is no knock against you, but you've been on top of this whole eminent domain thing for a long time, right? And I've heard you go on about eminent domain and the overuse of eminent domain, and I'll agree with you. But I'm talking specifically about this guy in New York that had all those masks, and he was looking to make a profit, right? Now, you can argue about whether or not it's moral, whether it's right that he should be making a profit or profiting on these on a pandemic, right? And I'm not here to argue whether or not the guy is moral or even the scum of the earth. I'm not here to argue with you on that. All I am here to discuss with you is whether or not it is right and proper for the FBI with guns to raid this man's home and to take his property that he purchased legally. Take his property he legally purchased and take it and use it for their own or for the government's need. Now, to me, that's crossing the line. I mean, would you not agree, Tim?
I agree.
So, if when will we see something like this again? My concern is anytime you set some type of precedent like this, and the worst of it is I saw Patrick Law saying we need more Republicans. The people who are giving me the most crap about this, a lot of them are Republicans that are saying, well, you're not supposed to be profiteering during a time of crisis. I get that. I get that, but that's still his private property he purchased with his hard-earned taxed dollars, right? So
Well, here's my concern. I really believe, and I go back and forth on this, but I really believe our government reflects our society, not society reflects government. Government has a way of manipulating it. So we're getting what we asked for.
Hold on. So Sonia Druji said they paid him market price for it. They paid him pre-virus or pre-pandemic price for it. Okay, and okay, that's fine, right? I know Patrick. I was just giving you some crap. I get it. You were just making fun of Tim. We all do that. He's our punching bag sometimes. But
I can only take the blow if I know what did he do to rip on me. I missed it.
No, he was just saying that we need more Republicans in the government. So all right. So with that being said, yes, they paid him market price. That is not what he was charging. They did not give him what he was asking for the mask. And they went and they raided his home and they took them. If I were to say, and I'll speak directly to the person that said it in the chat, if I were to tell Sonia, I really like that car that you have. It's pretty. Or your home. I like that house you got. I tell you what, I'll give you $150,000 for it. That seems fair. That's what you paid for it back in 2012. Yeah, I'll take it for 150 grand. And I force you to sell it to me at that price, even though you feel that it's worth more or you don't want to sell it at all. Even though you feel like it might be worth more, that is messed up. I understand price gouging is illegal. There's a lot of things that are legal and illegal. That doesn't make them right. Once upon a time in America, you could own people. That was legal. Okay? That does not make it right. People say that price gouging during and Tim, maybe you can explain that to us. I mean, so I've heard it both ways, but I've heard people say that price gouging specifically during a disaster or a national disaster is illegal. What's that?
Only. So let's walk through this one step at a time. It'll be quick, I promise. But when there's executive powers exerted, now Congress could make it illegal, but it's not illegal normally, right? So when there's executive powers, what it really does is it allows the executive, in this case the governor in the United States, the president, to whatever within those powers to basically make his own law for that period of time. So that's what the governor's doing. Here in Minnesota, they made price gouging illegal through that executive order. But here's the danger in that. The way that he instructed the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, was, and I wish I had the words in front of me because the words are stunning, but it's like extraordinary profit or I think maybe it was excessive profit. Well, what's excessive? And so you say no one wants price gouging. We hate the person that price gouges. But what happens when the Attorney General sets the market price of what's reasonable? That's not a good thing, right? And so technically right now in the United States and in the state of Minnesota, price gouging, there's technically a procedure through the courts where you can say someone was unfairly charged for something, but it's a lot of work. It's a very high bar in the courts to do that. Now, if Nick Rakita's listening, he'll jump in and tell me exactly what it is and how it's wrong. But that's my understanding of it. Back in the day, it's been a bunch of years, but I saw case law to where proving that someone was truly gouged is a very, very high bar. But during this, it's going to be determined by the Attorney General of what's fair and not fair. That kind of swings it in the other direction. But no, technically on the books, if we weren't not under emergency executive orders, quote unquote, price gouging in Minnesota is not illegal. You could charge whatever you want, whatever the market will bear.
And that's what a free market looks like. That's what it looks like. If people didn't want his mask, they didn't have to buy them. But the idea that the government has the right to go into feels that they have the right to go into someone's home, to take something that was bought legally, purchased legally, and use it for their own needs is atrocious to me. I mean, it's something similar. I was watching a press conference by Como, that your buddy Andrew Como over there in New York. I think you were praising him last time you were on the show.
No, I wasn't. You guys need to listen. Listen to what I say, not what you hear.
Wait a minute. Hold up. Wait, what I hear is what if I'm listening, I hear it. And therefore, if I hear it, it was said. Now, Soder, you were there.
Yeah, I thought you were praising him for being a man of action. Am I wrong in there?
What I said, what was the subject matter that we were talking about that night?
It was about
the attributes
who lead.
No, it was about what are the attributes of a great leader, which, by the way, I didn't even call him a great leader. We were talking about the attributes of a leader, and then we kind of brought it over into this subject because everything is COVID now. And I said, I'm disappointed that through this we're not seeing true leaders coming forward. And to punctuate that fact, the one person who has acting most like a leader was Cuomo. And then right away I said, I don't agree with what he's doing, but he is stepping up and showing leadership qualities. Now, I can compliment someone on their leadership qualities and still hate how they're using that leadership. But from what I heard after the fact from Q is everyone's mad at me because I think that Cuomo's a good guy. I didn't say that.
We're not. We're not.
It's actually a sad indictment on, and I'm going to go back to that again. I am not, and when I say I'm not, you can throw names on the table. I'm not seeing a great deal of strong leadership through any of this. I've seen it locally, and I can't do a roll call in other states. There might be other states that are doing it. But what I have witnessed, I've seen very little leadership during this very troubling time, and that's sad. That's sad for me.
I would have to agree with you on that. I want to get into talking about Andrew Cuomo. Well, let's start off real quick. So, one of the things that I saw him doing is he also.
Hey, sorry, I say something else there for a minute. We do have a couple super chats.
Okay, well
First up, we have Solvis. First up, we have Solvis for $1.99 saying the pre-show begins. And up next, Old Bleezy 92, $10. Hey everyone, just wanted to say thanks for the Sandy Beige 42 club card. Also, always glad to. Oh, it's hiding. I can't even see it anymore. All right, it's always glad to see and hear from the Honorable Sir Tim. Sadly, I won't be able to see the whole stream tonight because work calls. Oh man, to be an essential employee,
It's great, isn't it?
it's great. Okay, all right, I'm done.
Except for unfortunately, some of my essential friends are realizing that they could, with the new bill passed by Congress, that they could actually make more money being on unemployment with that extra $600 a week. So that's unfortunate.
That is.
So, but I was listening to Cuomo talk, and he was saying that he was mobilizing the National Guard to round up ventilators. So it sounded so great, and I think you're being lulled to sleep by. He sounds like a great leader, Tim, but he's not. He really isn't.
You already changed. You already said I said he's a great leader. I said the one person who's showing any leadership qualities that I can see is Cuomo. But I don't agree with what he's doing.
And that is what you said, Tim. It's just fun to mess with you, okay?
That's
but
fine.
that is what you said. I did have to go back and listen to it, and you did say the only person that's showing any type of leadership is Andrew Cuomo. So yes, you're correct. But he is mobilizing the National Guard to go to upstate New York and to round up ventilators from other hospitals that are not using them and bring them to New York City. Now, that sounds all fine and dandy at first until you realize that the hospitals that he is rounding them up from are privately owned hospitals, right? And so these hospitals have gone out, they've bought the ventilators, they've actually properly prepared, and he is sending, he's saying we have more need of those in the city, and he is making a grab with the military, okay, confiscating these things. Now, imagine here in Minnesota, we have quite a few privately owned facilities. Mayo Clinic would probably be the most famous. Can you imagine what type of melee it would cause if Governor Walz decided to send the National Guard down to Mayo Clinic to round up ventilators that Mayo Clinic paid for out of their own pockets? That's insane. Well, I mean,
if it gets bad here, it's coming.
And I get that, but right now,
and I'm not saying I agree, and I'll explain why in a second. I'm trying to finish something, but I'll explain why. This is what I get for trying to multitask.
But right now, the big issue is in the state of Minnesota, to my understanding, you cannot get a test unless you are hospitalized. And that's what I'm hearing. So for those people who are showing signs of being ill, they'll kind of look them over and things like that. But if they are not showing severe signs, if they're showing severe signs, they'll be hospitalized and they'll get a test. They have sent people home, okay, that didn't show any major signs and things like that, which whatever. The problem is like you said, we're not hardly testing these people, but the people that we are testing, by far, Mayo Clinic has run more tests than just about any other lab, than the other labs in the state combined. I mean, Mayo Clinic is killing it right now as a private entity, okay? But the thing that
what we did out here in Appleton was all the hospitals getting together doing it privately and independently. I know what you're talking about.
I mean, it's great to see private businesses, okay, get together and make a difference. And I'm really excited, and I don't want to get it too far into the weeds of complaining because, man, we have seen a lot of fantastic showings, okay, of people, of Americans standing up and doing the right thing. We really have. We've seen. Go ahead.
Here's what you have to know about the ventilators, okay? And this is really, really important to know, okay? And this is really what's driving a lot of our policies when it comes down to it. It's the ventilators. Now, here's why. Because the way that the U.S. system is set up, We don't have a whole bunch of ICUs. We don't have a whole bunch of ventilators. Why? Because we move people through that system and get them to less serious degrees as quickly as possible. The decisions, right or wrong, whether they're good, whether they're bad, are being steered around those ventilators. Because here's what happens in Minnesota. If we start getting more people that need ventilators and have them, then they start prioritizing. Now you have people literally making decisions of life and death on people. In Italy right now, or at least a couple days ago, this was true. The practice was if someone was not getting better if they couldn't get off the ventilator after 5 days, they were being taken off anyway. Why? Because they had to give it to someone that they might be able to save. Understand, by taking that person off the ventilator, it's their death sentence right there. So there's a real fear for that. And what's happening in these states, right or wrong, they're going in and they're saying, we're going to take these ventilators and put them to where we think the priorities need to be because we don't have enough in those places. Those plans are written down somewhere in Minnesota too. I haven't seen them. I don't know what they look like. I don't know where the priorities are, but I can tell you that those are drawn up, that if we don't have enough ventilators, they're going to start taking them from one place and they're going to put them in another place. I'm not saying it's right. I'm telling you what's going to happen.
Well, and if you talk about Italy, I was reading that essentially anyone over the age of 80 was no longer, they weren't going to put resources into those people, which, that's kind of the wonder of socialized medicine. That's kind of what comes along with it. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a situation like that if we were any more overwhelmed than what we are, because Medicare is just, anyway. I don't want to get into that whole thing because that would be an entirely different show. But that's an argument that could be raised. Is, do you feel that the government has the right to go in and take property from private corporations? I know that there's been some powers given to the president here recently to force that he has the ability, what is it, the wartime production powers, to force private companies to produce materials that we need. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But fortunately, he's been very sparing in how he's using those powers. He hasn't had to. I mean, Tim, it's been amazing to see these companies that have stood up and said, "Hey, we'll do this, we'll do that," and everyone, many hands make light work. I mean,
answer this for me, okay? Here in our own state of Minnesota, 3M. I don't know what President Trump ended up doing, but he called out 3M and said, "You're sending your respirators to everywhere else in the world except for here. They need to go here." And 3M basically said, we don't answer to any given country. We answer to where we need to send these. Now, if Trump stepped in and said, "No, 3M, you're going to send them to the United States," because I believe he's empowered through that law that you're talking about. I think correct. He's empowered to do that. Do you have a problem with him stepping in and doing that?
I do have a problem with him stepping in and doing that. But of course, well, and I get it. That's where hold on.
No. Hold on. Here's why. And here's where it gets really muddled. And here's the challenge, okay? He's the president of the United States. He's not president of the world. I want my executive. The big problem that I had with Obama, my biggest problem anyway with Obama, was he forgot that he's the chief executive for our country. He thought he was chief executive for all that's right and wrong in the world. And he answers to the United States first. So I want Trump, within whatever powers he has, if he says, "Nope, we're going to take care of the United States first," that's the job of the president of the United States.
So, Soder, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
So what do you think about that? What do you think about the president using his office, using his power to tell privately owned companies, publicly traded companies, who they can sell to, or who they need to sell to, and who they need to produce products for, and what products they need to produce?
Only to the United States.
Outside of a time of war, I don't think he should really have that ability.
But we're at war
think
against this invisible enemy.
We've been at war with
Coronavirus.
invisible enemies like poverty and drugs, and not that drugs are, their abuse is invisible, but it doesn't make sense to me to say 3M, we're not going to allow you to we're not going to let you choose who you do business with when they're not an enemy of the United States.
Okay, so
yeah, but they're afforded certain liberties and certain rights because they're headquartered and reside, their primary residence is within the United States. So at what point, and this is a debate we're going to have coming out of this, there's some argument, there's been some people that are already calling for world leadership as opposed to country leadership. We're talking people that you might call, you might disagree with them, but you call them sane, normal people that are calling for that. At what point is the President of the United States responsible for the care and taking of the United States above other countries? And now you have 3M, which is within those United States. Not that I think the president should tell people where they can and can't sell things. I'm telling you that if he says they need to sell to the United States first, I would want my president to do that. And if he's empowered to do it, I would want him to use that power to do it.
This is very concerning to me.
So you're saying that there is no loyalty to the United States of America?
I'm saying that earlier you talked about we need to stand by our principles in the most trying times because that's when they're tested and that's when they really matter. To say, well, the president, if he does have the power to prevent a private company, private individuals from transacting business overseas with people who are not our enemies and we are not at war with, isn't a principle that we need to adhere to in this trying time. We might as well just throw out the Constitution and just say, screw it all. This ends now. We'll just hand all the power.
Is it the Constitution of the world? No, it's the Constitution of the United States. Okay? And our president, one of those fundamental principles that we have to adhere to during difficult times is that we're a sovereign nation. And I want my president to do everything he can to protect this nation from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Okay? So I'm not saying
selling their product in Mexico. How on earth is 3M selling their products in Mexico traitorous activity to the United States? I have no idea how you're getting there.
You're conflating it.
No, you're saying that the president should prevent 3M from conducting business in Mexico because he needs to protect U.S. citizens.
Well, in this particular situation, it's not Mexico, it's Canada.
Okay, I didn't say that. What I said is that the priority for the president of the United States needs to be the United States. Okay, so I'm not saying he can tell you can't do it with Canada because you have to do it with us. What I'm saying is that when 3M says that their inventories are down and they can't answer every question everywhere in the four corners of the earth, yes, I damn well expect them to put a priority on the United States. Absolutely. If they're putting a priority of Canada over the United States because of whatever reasons they have, and they reside, they're headquartered here. I mean, some of these corporations are international, so I'm going to have to call it where they're headquartered. But the basis of 3M is right here in Minnesota. I fully expect them to defend the United States. If they have to make that choice, you darn well better believe it.
And I agree. I agree with you in a sense. I agree with you that should be the move of 3M. That is how they should handle things. That is how they should react. Okay. Where I get off the boat, Tim, is whether or not we should empower our government to make those decisions, to force them to make those decisions. That's where I guess I disagree. Okay. I agree that it should be America above all. And I believe that you ought to take care of your house first. Charity begins at home, as the Bible says. So I agree with you on that. But is that because it's the right thing to do? Or is it because the long arm of the government is going to force them to do it? Because what the government can force one person to do, it can also force you to do. It also
Absolutely.
can force other people to do. And so it's what's the difference? What is the difference between what the president is doing to 3M and what the Governor Cuomo is doing to the privately owned hospitals in upstate New York, forcing them to turn over machines that were paid for by them, machines that they legally own?
I disagree with it, but the laws of the state of New York, I'm presuming, afford him that power to do that. The emergency powers that we give the governor in Minnesota, I had a friend tell me, says, "You ever read the actual law?" And I said, "Well, I kind of glanced at it, but no, I haven't read the actual law." He goes, "I don't know who passed this, but it basically empowers him to do just about anything he darn well pleases." Okay, I don't agree with that, but if that's in the law, what we're going to have to do is, if he overstepped the bounds of what's reason for the people of Minnesota, we have to change that law. Okay? The real challenge, and I'm going to throw a name on you that usually is the dividing point between me and libertarians. Because who's my favorite president of all time?
Ronald Reagan.
No, even more than that.
Oh, really? Abraham Lincoln.
Soder's going to blow up when I say this. Yes, it's Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
Who abused executive powers and set a tone for the United States of centralized government more than anyone else other than Honest Abe, right?
Right.
Right. He was the beginning of the problem.
Rebellion.
What's that?
I don't know, that whiskey rebellion though.
Rebellion. So, but I bring that up because he was the one that really tested the executive powers of the federal government far beyond what anyone else did. And I don't know if he was right or wrong. What I like in the movie Lincoln, and I'm not saying the real Lincoln ever said this, but in the movie Lincoln, I like the way they express this, because his cabinet got on him and said, "You're doing things that are tyrannical. You're doing exactly what the Democrats are saying you are. You've become this this king when we didn't want a king." And he said, well, and again, this was the movie. I'm not saying the real Abraham Lincoln said this, but in the movie, he said, well, he goes, "I didn't know if my powers were, he didn't say legal, I forget his actual speech, but I didn't know if my powers were doable." But he said, "I did them a year and a half or 2 years before the next election. I let the people decide, and they reelected me." And one thing that we have to remember is, and trust me, I am a adhere to the Constitution person. Don't get me wrong, but this is the tension that we have in a republic, is that the people have an active voice, and so this stuff may all be wrong, and it may not be good, but fundamentally, if the people of Minnesota, in at least a large enough number that the governor is listening, the people of Minnesota are asking him to take control away from one and make decisions to what they consider to be safety. I don't agree with all of it, but I know why he's doing it. And the people of Minnesota are asking him to do it by and large. And if not, he'll lose the next election.
So let me ask you this. Are you a fan of socialism?
No.
Okay. Are you a fan of government controlling the means of production?
No.
So please tell me, how is that any different? If you are not for the government controlling the means of production, then how is it any different when the government can tell you who you can and cannot sell your products to? How is that not controlling the means of production?
It is.
So how are you agreeing with the president in this move? And hey, anyone who's a fan of this show knows that I am a fan most of the time of Donald Trump, but I am not a Donald Trump homer. When he's right, I will give him credit. When he is wrong, I will call him out. Okay, so I'm not a homer of Donald Trump in any way. When he's right, I'll agree. When he's wrong, I'll agree. And in this situation, I think he's wrong.
So
they have a responsibility, especially in this time of economic crisis. They have a responsibility to sell their products to the people who are going to give them the fairest price and where they can do business. That might sound terrible, but they have a responsibility to not only their shareholders, but also to do right by their employees as well.
And by the free market. No, I don't disagree with that. But here's the challenge, and here's where we become cross, and people, start calling me all sorts of interesting names because I'm not libertarian. The challenge that I have with the libertarian movement, as I see it, so I'm not the problem I have with libertarians, but the way I understand the libertarian movement is that there is this black and white view of this is what the Constitution does, this is what it doesn't do, or this is what a free person does, free person doesn't. I don't disagree with any of the principles that a libertarian espouses. When you talk about those principles and where I stand, I would fall on the right side every single time. Okay? But we don't live in a static society. We don't live in a pure society. And if it comes to libertarians, in our society, you need to be careful because under the best of circumstances, you're maybe at 20%. And I think the number is lower than that. So that means 80%. Let's give you 30%. So that means 70% of the people in which the majority elects their representative leaders, okay, in the republic. 70% of the people don't necessarily agree with that. So do we discount that 70%? No. So what I'm saying is, and the point I was trying to make with Lincoln in the movie Lincoln, and the view that he had that the next election came up, he put to the test something and said, if I'm wrong, the people are going to let me know it's wrong. Okay. And I think that there's an incredible power to that. It doesn't always work out the right way. I think it can be problematic as much as it's not. There is from Winston Churchill, and this is where I need to get more adept at swinging over and looking. And I'll try and do it here real quick. Hold on a second. Where did I do this? Okay. So I might have to have you talk so that I'm going to do Winston Churchill quotes.
Real quick, while you're doing that, Soder, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I tried to kill myself, all that boomer talk, but it didn't work.
while Tim is looking up this quote, could you please, I think Dragonite sent a Streamlabs, want to get to that.
Yes, Bad Dragon, I did send in a Streamlabs donation a bit ago. And it reads, for $1, thank you, Mr. Dragon. It's the U.S. Constitution. All the more reason for the U.S. to follow it. You expect them to make the choice to put the United States first by taking away that choice by gunpoint.
Okay,
yeah, pretty much.
So here's...
Go ahead, Tim. Did we lose Tim?
Oh, I need to get, I thought I had the quote, but I only have part of it. Let me get the rest of it up here.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So Soder.
What I was going to say is what Winston Churchill basically said is many governments have been tried, and one of the worst is democracy. And and in the quote that I can't bring up fast enough, he talks about all the ills and all the travails of a democracy. But he basically says, despite all that, it's still the best form of government that the world has ever seen. So I hope I'm making sense that there's a distinction here, that I don't disagree with the libertarian fundamentals, but in a free people where the person, so like as much as Ilhan Omar drives me crazy, okay, she was elected by a free society to be their representative.
Oh, I
So
thought
to
you were
say,
going to call her a great leader. I mean, you're kind of
no,
on a
she's
roll,
terrible.
but you know.
She's terrible in all forms. But my point is that if people bring forward, and with Ilhan it's a little bit different. So let's say AOC, or just pick your person you don't like that's elected, and they were elected by somebody in this imperfect system, okay? To say that they don't have a voice simply because they don't match up to what the Constitution says, that needs to be challenged. That's why we have separation of powers, or we're supposed to. That's one of the problems we have, okay? But that's why we have a bicameral legislature in the federal government. Here in Minnesota, most states have bicameral, not all do, but you have bicameral. That's why you have the courts. And so where does the truth lie? Well, the truth lies when the system kind of distills it out, and whether it be through the legislature, and then the executive power acts on it, and then the courts determine whether either one is constitutional, and what does it mean to be constitutional, and the people that are on the court decide, whether the Constitution is living and breathing, or its original intent. All that stuff is what makes our wonderful republic absolutely gangly and horrible, but it's also what's made it the best form of government in the world. But to say that the United States, it's true, it steers out from the pure libertarian view of what the Constitution says. I can't deny that, okay? But the fact that it does not negate that the people of the United States have a voice, because in the end, it's us people that have the voice, or supposed to. So that, again, I'll reiterate one more time, and then I'll stop pounding this horse. I admired Lincoln because he tried to navigate through the most testing time in our nation to date. Who knows, maybe this will become it. But he navigated through it. And you can criticize the different things that he did, but he pulled us through, and we're a united nation because of it. And I think we were a better people because of it, not despite it.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I hope Soder's internet holds up, because
Okay.
I have a because I have a bus that I must throw him under real quick.
Uh-oh.
So yeah. So take a break, Tim. You get a reprieve for just a moment.
You are breaking up. I can't hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So we have fried Tim. We have fried Tim on several occasions on this show. I have
here first.
I have personally fried Tim a couple of times as it pertains to libertarianism, and we've had our fair share of debates. The one thing that we've always come back to is that as long as your rights to do you don't infringe upon my rights to do me, the government should stay out of it. Right, Tim? I've said that several times, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't necessarily disagree with that, do you, Soder? Soder? I think Soder is hiding. Soder's in hiding.
I'm trying to remember what you were saying. I was busy pouring some.
So, but Tim, you agree that we've made that argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my concern though is this: if we're going to stand by that, if my right to be out and about infringes on your right to be healthy, does the government then have the right to force me to quarantine and to stay away from others because I might infringe upon their right to remain healthy? I'm asking Tim.
Oh, I thought you were asking Soder. I'm sorry.
Well,
Ask me the question. You told me to take. You said I had time off.
Yeah, but Soder's acting like a wuss. He doesn't want to answer. So
Wow. So ask
No,
me the question and I'll answer you.
Please, go. Jeez. I was trying to remember what you were saying, buddy. What? It sounded like you talked to Tim a bit there, and then I blanked out while I was pouring my whiskey. I'm
okay,
sorry.
so the argument that we have made on this show time and time again is that the government does not have the right to infringe upon the rights of another unless your rights are infringing upon the rights of another human being. If my rights infringe upon Soder's rights, the government then has the right to step in and say, hey, you can't do that. So the question that I have is, if my right to be out and about and to enjoy my life and live my life normally and to keep my business open could possibly infringe on your right to keep your family healthy, does the government then have the right to step in and to shut that down?
My first firing back would be my rights infringing upon. I get where you're going with that, but it how to put it?
Oh my goodness, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, I have for the first time in all these years of knowing Soder, I have for the first time rendered him speechless. Can you see that?
Speechless.
Oh, right. Yeah, the first time. Sure. That is not the first time. You've done that plenty.
So go ahead and answer it, because you guys are the ones that told Adam Kokesh that I was a fake libertarian and I wasn't a full libertarian. You and Steven both teamed up on me and made that comment. So as a real libertarian, go ahead.
Not give me the kill you or harm you. That's where I think I know where you're going with the rights infringing upon another, but it doesn't. I don't agree with how it's framed and how people take what you would say. I would say our rights end where their borders are with someone else. Like, just because I have a right to property doesn't mean I have a right to your property. Just because I have a right to own a gun doesn't mean I have a right to your gun. Just because I have a right to life doesn't mean I have the right to your life. So while I get what you're saying in that I have the right to speak, but I don't have the right to slander you. When I slander you, that's a lie. That's an infringement upon your character. Okay, so that's why I was trying to figure out a way to say that, and I hope I came up with a way to explain why I disagree with your phrasing, though I understand what you're trying to say. Does that answer your question?
No, not at all, actually. No.
Okay, I agree with the ability of the government to take away my ability to do business. I don't at all. I understand.
And I would say that no, I would agree with you. Okay, so let's and I think Tim agrees with that as well, right? You don't like the idea that all these businesses are being shut down, Tim. We've talked about that, right? But I've also made the argument that if Tim is going to be wholly consistent, he's going to have to become a libertarian. I've made that argument so many times over the last year. So I want to make sure that we are being consistent. If the government should stay out of our business, our daily business, until such time that my exercising my rights infringes upon your rights, at that point, does the government then have the obligation to step in? Hello?
I'm here. I'm trying to figure out how I could say what I said before differently.
So Miller, Mr. Miller, Senor Sir Tim. So what do you feel about that?
Well, that's depends on what act you're talking about, but that's the fundamental definition of public safety. And there's, one of the now this is a dangerous word because it gets overused and gets misused, but I'll use it anyway. There is a responsibility for government to protect its citizens. And why do I say that? Because that's why we formed a government. That's just one of those, to protect a person's, to assist, to have a stable society. You need to have, basically, for lack of a better and most generic term I can think of, is you need to have a referee, an umpire, an enforcer. And you need to have someone that says, in a stable society, there's certain rules that we're going to abide by, and if you don't abide by that against someone else, then here's the penalty. And so if you take someone's life, that's the ultimate removal of liberty. We're going to take your liberty from you, okay? Maybe even your life in some states. If you take their life, if you're a kid and you go into a convenience store and you steal a pack of gum, not that I ever did that when I was a kid, but you get caught. Well, for the sake of a stable society, you have some sort of punishment associated with that. And so so there is a role in that for government.
I know what I believe as it pertains to liberties, as it pertains to the government protecting individual liberties, and everything that I said prior to this in the last hour, I believe wholeheartedly. Now, am I right? I believe I am. I believe that my arguments are strong, and I do not believe they can be broken, and anyone can take a shot at them. But the idea that the government has the right to tell a private company that they have to sell to a certain person or a certain country, I do not think that is constitutional. The idea that the government, okay, I don't believe it's constitutional, nor do I believe that it is right and or moral. Okay. The idea that the state government has the right to go in and take private property from businesses or from individuals to redistribute them where they feel they are better needed, I think is an awful thing, right? You can call it whatever you want to call it, okay? But when we talk about democracy and the people making a choice, just because the majority of people believe or want something doesn't necessarily make it right either, right? I mean, if that were the case, then was Hitler in the right? I mean, because the majority of Germans were falling in line and going along with what he proposed, right? So if we're going to use the ultimate litmus test being the amount of support that he has for what he's doing, does that make it morally right?
Oh, no, the ultimate litmus test is not. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's a mishmash of all of the above, and to simplify it down to this piece here is what makes it right or wrong, just gets you in dangerous territory. That's why I say separation. The reason why the U.S. system works better than anywhere else is the fundamental principles of, we have a good Constitution, first of all. Second of all, in that Constitution, we have clear separation of powers. That gets abused a lot, but we do have it. We have the civil law, or the what's it called? Not natural law. The court system. What do we call that? But anyway, we have the system to where the courts determine things and it matures over time. We get that from England. We have lots of principles in the U.S. that all come together, but to try and put it into a neat mold is just difficult to do. I guess that's maybe the point that I was trying to make. Now, before you comment again, you have one soothing voice there, Q, and I've been on one form of video camera or another since about 6:30 tonight. And as you were talking, I was starting to doze off, like I was watching Netflix. So we're going to have to wrap this up in 5 minutes because that probably wouldn't be a first on this show, but it would certainly be a landmark moment if, like, I'm sitting here, Tim, are you awake? Oh yeah, what'd you just say?
Well,
I'm getting really tired.
We should probably work on shutting it down because I cannot confirm this, but I think Soder is falling asleep over there as well. So
I did not have whiskey before dinner tonight. Okay, I specifically went.
That sounds like a country song.
I didn't have whiskey before the show. So Tim, one of the things I wanted you to speak on is, I mean, we're seeing this particular, there are a lot of opportunists out there. Okay. There are a lot of people who are jumping on this opportunity of the coronavirus to get legislation passed. And we're seeing it on a federal level, but we're also seeing it on a state level.
Yes,
you mentioned that you just passed well, not you, but the state of Minnesota, the House just passed a massive bill doling out a lot of money to a lot of special interests. Just talk about that a tad bit before you go, and how we as private citizens can try to help ensure that we keep our elected officials, that we hold them accountable.
Well, it's a little bit tricky now because the way you keep them accountable is you look at the bill, you listen to what they say, and you contact them and you say, you know what, I don't support this part of the bill. I don't want you to either. Or when you hear them talking, you're like, can you explain this to me? You know, you engage. In a representative government, very definition of representative government is your representatives should be accessible. Not all of them are, but they should be. In the case of this bill last week, there was almost no accessibility, almost no transparency, and a lot of covering tracks afterwards. It was not good. Now there were some good things in the bill too, so don't misunderstand me. There were some things there that you might disagree with the government's role, but it was at least intended in the right direction. So it wasn't a 100% stinker bill, but it was a large percentage stinker bill, and so. How you keep people accountable is, you know, when I, as a state representative, say it stinks, in the West Central Tribune locally, they called me and they said, why'd you vote no? And I told them why I said no. Well, if you read that and you say, you know what, he voted no, but my representative voted yes, well, then talk to your representative. Why did you vote yes? And listen to what he or she has to say. And then in the balance, decide for yourself. But what happens is, this is one of the fundamental things broken in our government. So our government is designed that it forces you into a position of compromise in the good sense. I mean, like, you know, we need to come to compromise on this, right? So that fundamental idea is not a bad thing, but it's what compromise looks like now in our world is not probably even close to its purest sense, because what compromise is now is, you know, one chip for me, two chips for you, two chips for me, one chip for you. You know, you take what you want, and it's not that there isn't some altruism in there, meaning, or selflessness, like, you know, we need to do what's right for the people, but when people have access to other people's money, they can't help themselves, and so. You know, I'll never forget. So one of the things in this bill, out of $330 million, we literally gave $12 million in cash to tribal casinos. I mean, 11 million. Sorry. Well, people, if you're not from Minnesota, we have 11 tribes in Minnesota, and they all have casinos, and the casinos are closed right now. So we wrote checks, 11 different checks of $1 million each to cover these casinos. Okay. No one really agrees with that, especially since the $30 million we gave to small businesses was all in loans. So small business, you pay a loan. If you're a tribal casino, you get $1 million in cash. And the two arguments that I had for this was of why they allowed it in there was, well, $11 million isn't much in light of $330 million, I suppose, but $11 million is $11 million, right? And the second argument is we would have never gotten a bill done if we didn't agree to that. Well, that's not a what sort of thing that's just mind-blowing to me. But the reality is, when President Trump said afterwards, what, the Kennedy Center $25 million was a good thing? No, it wasn't. Okay. There's no, you cannot give me any reason why even if the Kennedy Center was going to be getting that money anyway, you put it through on another bill. Whatever your reason is, you don't do it on this. To say that that's what you needed to do to get the bill done is absolutely insane. My point is that in government, there's a ton of that goes on all the time, a ton, more than it doesn't.
No, I would have to agree. I'd have to agree. But one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of, I'm seeing a ton of, is Rahm Emanuel, the great Obama, the mayor of Chicago, well, the former mayor of Chicago, right? He's not a mayor anymore. But he said, never let a crisis go to waste. And we're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of things that are being passed through, things that just a couple weeks ago, Bernie Sanders was pushing for, and we were calling it absolutely socialist and awful. But when our guy proposes it, hey, it's to keep everybody safe. Well, that doesn't make it right either. But I tell you what, guys, we've got one more. We have one more. Are you there, Soder? I think making sure you're still awake. We had one Streamlabs come through. Let's go ahead and read that before Tim takes off.
Show now.
You said what?
I can't be mad that that's the meme in the show anymore, because that's how the best memes get created.
What, are you sleeping?
No, how that came about.
Okay, go ahead.
From our good buddy Asmodeus, thank you, buddy. Always glad to see your name popping up on the chat end in here. For $5, screw it. Bring on full authoritarianism. I don't care anymore. This whole ordeal has made me lose complete faith in humanity. No matter how many Facebook moments people spew about how many companies are pretending to be altruistic for kudos. I'm getting there myself.
That
makes me even angry, because it proves Tim's point that the heart of every libertarian is an authoritarian. Damn it.
I did say it. But you know what's funny? That's a discussion for another night. Should corporations or should companies be altruistic? Because I would argue, no, that's not their job. That's one of the problems we're running into right now. It's not the job. What's the one job of a corporation? Yeah, one job.
It's to do what the president says.
Nope, it's to turn a profit. The corporation's job is to maximize their profit for their shareholders. That's the whole point of them.
Except for in times of crisis. Then they exist at the service or at the behest of the federal government.
So correct? I'm gonna give you an example of where things go off the rails. It's kind of like my Andrew Cuomo thing or some of these other things. I can state something, it doesn't mean that I own it or agree with it. Okay, so I think, and none of you are going to know these singers because I'm going back to my day. Okay,
try us.
Okay, actually, I'll give you a modern day one. Okay. Oh shoot! No, I just forgot her name.
If you say Lady Gaga, we're shutting this thing down.
No. Although she's incredible. What's it? Taylor Swift? Okay. I don't like a single Taylor Swift song in the sense that, like, I'm not a 15-year-old girl, therefore and not because of that I refuse to admit it, but I'm saying I don't like Taylor Swift's music. She doesn't write them. She doesn't write them for a 54-year-old guy. But now hear me out. Here's the point I'm making. Taylor Swift is incredibly talented. Now, for me to say Taylor Swift is incredibly talented doesn't mean that I love her music. It means she is incredibly talented at what she does. That's the problem that we have, is that you can't say something like someone is, good at something, because then it means, well, I can't believe I'm going to end this show. Next week, everyone's going to want to know why Taylor Swift is your favorite musician.
Yes.
We live in a world of sound bites. People aren't going to sit back and watch this entire show. So we have to be able to brand you somehow.
My dog is sacked out. He almost looks dead, and he just looked at me like, when are we going to bed? So you realize my bedtime is about 9 o'clock?
We appreciate you staying up with us. So
partying all night for me.
So that I am sending out a tweet right now. Representative Tim Miller says that Taylor Swift is the most talented singer of our generation.
Actually,
isn't that what you said?
Well, actually, I'll agree with that statement. She ranks up there as one of the most talented. I don't like her music, but she doesn't write music. If I was a 54-year-old guy and said I liked her music, there'd probably be some issues with that.
Oh, man. Well, I tell you what, guys, it has been a great show. It's always nice hashing out some of these things. We are in some trying times. I mean, and then to add on the fact that we now have a new investigation going on, Tim, Nancy Pelosi has opened up an investigation to the response to the coronavirus.
She just
we'll
can't
have
keep her fingers off of it.
Well, forget the response to the coronavirus. I mean, I would be all over the idea of doing a investigation on the origin of the coronavirus. I think that the American people deserve to know, and this whole idea that people eating bats in China brought it about. Maybe not, but I sure would like to know that for sure, because this thing has changed a lot of lives.
I know I'm supposed to know this, but I haven't had time to listen. What the hell's a wet market?
Obviously it's a place you can get bats and dogs and cats and snakes and other exotic meat.
It's literally a place you go. I thought it was like phraseology for some sort of economic model, a wet market. I was like, there's a wet something else that comes to mind. You ever hear that song? You ever hear that song, by the way? You ever hear that song, by the way? Gonna have a wet dream, going to the Gulf Stream.
No.
I'm gonna have to I'll have that prepared for next time. If this were on Zoom, I could share it with you. I'm not sure. Oh, I can share on this too, can't I?
Oh, no. We're not going to talk
next time.
Next time.
You have never heard? Tell people to YouTube Dr. Demento Wet Dream, and they will hear a song that will change their lives. Not for the better either.
Oh my gosh. What were you saying, Soder, before we
Hey, you kept me up past 10.
King Tim right now, remove from call. Okay, there you go.
Oh, Sonny Drugi says libertarians eat what they want, correct? Absolutely. You can eat what you want, but at the point that the entire world gets sick because you ate what you wanted, at that point you should be responsible. You should be liable. So I think our debt that we owe to China needs to be zeroed out tomorrow. But anyway, hey, thank you guys. We appreciate it. If you are not currently subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, like the video, share this, get the word out. We want to promote these conversations. They're good conversations, and I really do appreciate you coming on, Tim, and giving your perspective. I don't have to agree with you to respect the heck out of you. I agree more often than I don't, so we'll say that. But we're never going to agree on everything, but that's what makes us better people. So Thank you so much for taking the time. You guys have a great night. Have a safe week. Be safe.
Yes, buddy, but we just got a Streamlabs donation.
Okay. All right.
From Bad Dragonite again for $1. I heard Tim thinks that Chris Como was the best singer of any generation. All right, with that, good night, everyone. Good fun.
Fredo? All right, man. Hey, have a good night, and we will talk to you guys later.
Night, everyone.